In July of 2023, my wife and I took a trip to Canada. We traveled with caravan tours to visit the Canadian Rockies. Some of our family and friends also went along on the same tour. After spending the previous evening visiting our daughter's family in the Denver area, we rose in anticipation of our upcoming trip. Our daughter dropped us off at Denver International Airport, where we met my two brothers and their wives, and some other friends at the United Departures entrance. After getting our boarding tickets, passing through security, riding the underground train, and waiting at our gate for some time, we finally boarded our flight to Calgary, Alberta, Canada. The flight took about 2.5 hours. After arriving in Canada, we passed through customs and took the shuttle bus to our hotel, the Calgary Hilton Garden Inn. Calgary International Airport is located about 13 miles northeast of Calgary, so our shuttle ride took about 20 minutes. That evening, we ate in the dining room of the hotel. At 7 p.m., we had a briefing meeting with Caravan Tours to become familiar with the tour procedures and itinerary. After a nice breakfast at the Hilton Garden Inn, we boarded our coach and traveled south through Alberta ranching and farming country toward Waterton Lakes National Park. This aviation museum in Nanton, Alberta, looked like it might be fun to explore, though our tour did not stop. As we continued south, we traveled through some of Alberta's rich farming and ranching country, passing beautiful fields of canola, wheat, and hay stretching for miles. These triangular-shaped domes are shelters for beehives. I apologize for the window glare that can be seen in several of the photos and video clips. In this area of Alberta, the Canadian Rockies rise dramatically out of the rolling prairie. As we neared the U.S.-Canada border, we traveled past more lakes. Eventually, we had to stop at the border checkpoint. As we followed the small road toward Waterton Lake, the Prince of Wales Hotel gradually came into view. When we arrived in Waterton, we found this small deer feeding on a resident's yard. We hopped off the bus and headed to the dock to embark on our cruise on Waterton Lake. Our ride was the Miss Waterton.
Last two times
Waterton Lakes National Park is a national park located in the southwest corner of Alberta. It borders Glacier National Park in Montana of the United States. Waterton was the fourth Canadian national park and was formed in 1895. The park was named after Waterton Lake, which was named after the Victorian naturalist and conservationist Charles Waterton. This park contains 195 square miles of rugged mountains and wilderness.
Push those over, they would self-inflate and we'd all pile in. I would hand out paddles to you all and we'd continue on with our journey. Get your money's worth, right? But all jokes aside, we have all year.
Operated by Parks Canada, Waterton is open all year, but the main tourist season is during July and August. The only commercial facilities available within the park are located at the Waterton Park town site. This park ranges in elevation from 4,232 feet at the town site to 9,547 feet at Mount Blakeston. Pretty quick. We do a figure eight pattern along the lake so that you can all get that side on the shoreline to get some pictures and keep your eyes open for wildlife. Other wildlife that you might see today as well too. Keep your eyes peeled for white little. Here's something I found interesting. The cut line on the mountainside is the border between the United States and Canada. Waterton National Park was the first international peace park established in 1932 by combining Waterton Lakes Park in Canada with Glacier National Park in Montana. Together, these parks form Waterton Glacier International Peace Park, a celebration of a friendship between Canada and the United States. The Prince of Wales Hotel was constructed between 1926 and 1927, adjacent to Upper Waterton Lakes by the Great Northern Railway of the United States in an attempt to lure American tourists during the U.S. Prohibition era. The hotel, which opened in July 1927, is the only Grand Railway hotel in Canada to be constructed by an American railway company. The hotel was named after the Prince of Wales, later King Edward VIII, in an apparent attempt to entice him to stay in the hotel on his 1927 Canadian tour, but the prince stayed at his own nearby ranch instead. The hotel was designated as a National Historic Site of Canada in November of 1992. The oldest rocks in the park are marine sediments dating back 1.5 billion years. These rocks are composed of limestone, dolomite, and igneous rocks. There are fossilized seabeds as well as numerous stromatolite formations that are 1.3 billion years old. Unlike the Canadian Rockies, whose sedimentary strata are more or less inclined, the Waterton sediments are characterized by a single overlap. The Lewis overthrust allowed Proterozoic sediment to move as a unit horizontally on the rocks of the Cretaceous period, dating from about 70 million years ago. The fact that older rocks end up on younger rocks is a rare occurrence in geology. Under the Proterozoic layer, there is a layer dating from the Upper Cretaceous, which is mainly composed of schist. Although there are no glaciers left in Waterton, aside from a few expanses of eternal snow, the landscape has been greatly shaped by glaciation. Waterton National Park spans 4 ecoregions: foothills parkland, montane, subalpine, and alpine. Waterton is the only national park in Canada with a foothills parkland ecoregion, which comprises approximately 10% of the park. There are over 1,000 species of vascular plants found in the park. Over 20 species are endemic to the park. Over 50 species of plants that are found in the park are very rare in Canada. Waterton Lakes National Park is also home to small ferns called moonworts, and the Waterton moonwort is endemic to the park. Animals that inhabit this national park include wolverines, bighorn sheep, bald eagles, white-tailed deer, mule deer, mountain goats, elk, moose, foxes, timber wolves, bison, coyotes, beavers, river otters, cougars, lynxes, bobcats, snowshoe hares, pikas, hoary marmots, grizzly bears, and black bears. Many bird species nest or migrate through the park, some of which include bald eagles, Canada geese, orange-crowned warblers, and McGilvery's warblers. After our cruise, we traveled to the renowned Kootenai Brown Pioneer Village in Pincher Creek, Alberta. The village is a well-maintained historical facility with many buildings and displays. Actors play the parts of important pioneer people, and everything is very nicely kept. Here are several photos I took during our visit. Kootenai Brown Pioneer Village is an outdoor heritage facility. Visitors are able to walk directly into any of the historical buildings and view the artifacts, which are openly displayed. Born on October 10, 1839, John George Brown, better known as Kootenai Brown, was an Irish-born Canadian polymath, soldier, trader, and conservation advocate. John George Brown was born and educated in Ireland. Brown was commissioned as a British Army officer in 1857, joining the 8th Regiment as an ensign. After serving in India from 1858 to 1859, in 1862 he sold his commission and joined the flood of prospectors, joining the Cariboo Gold Rush in British Columbia, Canada. He proved unsuccessful as a prospector, turning to trapping and then briefly policing, serving as constable in Wild Horse Creek, British Columbia. In 1865, he was wounded on his way to Fort Garry, so he moved to Waterton Lakes, where he settled and became a whiskey trader. Subsequent to that, he worked briefly for a company delivering mail to the United States Army until 1874, during which time he was captured and nearly killed by Sitting Bull in 1869. A quarrel at Fort Benton, Montana, with celebrated hunter Lewis L. resulted in L being killed. After a trial and acquittal by a territorial jury, Brown returned to his beloved Kootenay, where he settled, building a reputation as a guide and a packer. In the Northwest Rebellion, he acted as a chief scout to the Rocky Mountain Rangers. Brown always argued vigorously for the region's preservation. After the Kootenay Forest Reserve was established in 1895, Brown became a fishery officer and in 1910 a forest ranger. He lived to see the reserve expanded into Waterton Lakes National Park, which became contiguous with the Glacier National Park in Montana in 1914. In 1869, Kootenai Brown married a local Métis woman and ultimately made a living bison hunting and wolfing. Kootenai Brown died in Waterton Lakes, Alberta, Canada, in July of 1916 and was buried alongside his two wives. The Kootenai Brown Pioneer Village in Pincher Creek, Alberta, is named after Kootenai Brown for his contribution to the history of the surrounding area. Kootenai Brown's cabin is also located on the site. Our accommodations for the evening were at the Heritage Inn Hotel and Convention Center in Pincher Creek, Alberta.